Well, it's hard to explain actually because it's a complex thing. But if I have to say one sentence, then I would go for sort of a new organizational development paradigm that's based on values, principles, and some behavioral styles. And then from there, when you respect the values and principles, and I can say briefly what the values are, you can actually build your own structures and customize it to your own needs. So the values are, there are 4 values, and it's also paradigmatic, let's say so. So we say we value more individuals and their interactions, over processes and tools. So when you think agile, you think actually culture, not so much structure, not so much processes. And it's really hard, it's difficult, because it's about people. Then the second one is we value more working software, which means working product, working whatever you make that has some complexity, over comprehensive documentation. The third one would be we value more customer collaboration over contract negotiation. So it's valid for business, obviously, because it was born in software industry mainly. But nowadays it went beyond software, far beyond software. So if you think in terms of the business and development, and normally business has vision and thinks big and defines the product, and development has more technical knowledge, knows the technology, knows how to make it. So business knows what to make and why, and the development knows how to make it. But the understanding, the mutual understanding is very difficult because they speak different languages, they have different mindsets and different focuses. So Agile is about making people collaborate around how business transfers its ideas into development and vice versa. And if you use it in another environment, such as education or whatever other financial industry, for example, it's pretty much the same, because you always have people that think big and invent product, and then you have people that are more knowledgeable in terms of how to make the product. And the communication is a must. And nowadays we live in a fast-paced times, so it has to be shortened. It can't be a long process of communicating what the business need is, because once you start communicating it and once you finish communicating it, it could be that it's obsolete, you know, at the end point. So that's the complication, and that's what Agile methodology tries to solve. Then I'm still with the third value, which is customer collaboration over contract negotiation. The main word there would be a hidden thing, which is they have to collaborate daily, like to shorten time of translation of the needs. And the fourth one, and probably the most important one, the main one, is we value more respond to change over follow a plan. Hard to explain, easy to intuitively get. So respond to change means not that there's no planning, there is planning, but planning is for really short periods of time. Let's say 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 at the most, because that's the only period of time that you can guarantee that you know what's your exact step, and you don't expect much risks, you don't expect much changes, and then you can calm down and do what you planned. But then again, you have to respond to change, meaning that in iterative cycles, you'll go and try to incorporate what has changed in the environment. So that's how it works. So if you see that the Agile methodologies are values and principles, basically, then everything is adaptable, meaning that whatever you do, if you have in mind that it's a mindset, so it's a totally new paradigm of how we understand life, then it's easy to make your own structure and to customize it to any industry, including e-learning. So you can see the parts of it and see how you can use it to improve the goal, to improve what you really want. But I think the main point is to understand that Agile is about vision. So if you don't have values, it means that you don't have vision. So it's about how you explain or reinvent e-learning. So you need a person or a team of people that are capable of envisioning, different shapes, redefining learning, redefining e-learning, redefining online environments, whatever, redefining students' needs, the way students work. So that's basically the agile. Then you have some ceremonies that respect some main, let's say, behaviors that we really want to promote today, such as, for example, focus. Think big, but focus on small. And keep the dance all the time. Then collaboration between teachers and students, but not in order to make them understand themselves better, but to give more autonomy to students. Because if you work with the students in terms of self-organized cross-functional teams, which is agile, that's how agile companies work, then you have innovation, and you have more responsibility, and you have more commitment, and stuff like that. So a lot of ceremonies, artifacts, roles that come from agile world can be used in an online environment. We used to live in a world where a teacher would say, do that, which is like sort of a command, and then control. So you didn't have much autonomy. I'm talking about past times, obviously not for this university, but there are still some universities with that mindset, which is control and command and control. It made sense before, because the teacher was one that had access to information, and not everyone had it. So it made sense to have one person or some persons know, and other persons get the knowledge. But nowadays it's not like that anymore. You have students, my students for example, they know much more. They know different sets of information, because information is all around us. It's not valuable as it was. It's cheap, so you can't really get rid of it. And you want to filter it, search it, optimize it, and make some sense out of a bunch of information that comes to you in forms of notification, real-time news, whatever. So the responsibility today is to give skills, or give, let's say, light structures to students. And when I say students, I intentionally say students, not one student, students, group of students, to work around something that really makes sense for them, or for their environment, or for the global thing, and that they can integrate. So you really need responsible students that learn within the system, like working together, how to change stuff in the system so they can integrate a product, a knowledge, a document, whatever. And you can't do that being a teacher from the outside, because it's a complex system. You can't really see what happens if I move one part of the system, what is the consequence? You can't see it anymore. It's too complex. So you need to let them probe, to let them test, make something to get the information of what is the result. And then you just teach them how to do that in iterative loops and get the feedback loops that can be, one single loop, 2 loops, even 3 loops, depends on how they organize. So the loops are on them. The students, every time they do something, they gather and they do sort of a retrospective meetings. And it's totally agile. Probably it's the most important ceremony in any agile methodology, where they talk about what went well, what went wrong, and they want to change. And was there anything they didn't have take into account and they would love to? Is there any knowledge missing, for example? Is there any skill that they would love to develop more? That's on them. So that's their responsibility. First one is like the discovery activities, where they have to work around the product, that they don't know what the product is yet. Maybe they have some vision, they have some idea, some like main direction, but they still have to define it, let's say, so to give it life. So that's perfect for the students. How to make, I don't know, you can make a prototype of a bridge, or, whatever. And then the other type of activity is the one that teaches them how to be more efficient with the actions where innovation is not needed. Meaning that they have to think about getting rid of waste. And it has to do a lot with the principles. One of them being the new paradigm principle, which is less is more. Like, don't accumulate, make decisions at the entrance. And the other one would be, for example, prioritize, because time is, is a limited resource. And today they produce a lot of ideas, like really, really a lot of ideas. And it's because we have all of the information around us, and it's easy to want and to desire, and it's more achievable. It's there. But if you have this list of ideas and the resources, the capacity is this, so you definitely have to prioritize and to get rid of the things you won't do. So activities that teach them that would be perfect. And there are tools, excellent for that, and many processes that can be very efficient. And yeah, basically that's it. Well, normally, since the whole methodology was taken actually from the real life, real business, where you have a client or you have a customer, and that the main role or the first business role is something we call product owner, then it makes sense to talk about clients in education. But let's see what a client is there. So it's all about who sets the requirements, who defines the product, and then how we communicate why and what, and who makes the product. So that's the whole mechanism. Now, if you look, if you try to adapt it to education, it would be difficult to say, is it a teacher, the product owner? Is it a teacher that sets the requirements? My answer would be not only, and for sure probably not the main one, because you can set requirements for the education. So what is the educational requirement, let's say so. But in terms of how it works outside the education, you need a client. And now you don't have a commercial client, you don't need to have a commercial client, you can have a social client. And what we did, for example, at my university, we worked with Wikipedia as a client and with the Khan Academy as a client. So we defined requirements for our students together. Like me being a teacher and Wikipedia being a client, actually, that wants Wikipedia articles. That would be the product. So we defined set of requirements for our students to guide them in prioritization, in deciding how to make something. And it's a single list of requirements, like a single backlog. And then we talk with the students, we check if they understand the requirement, we check if it's too big or too small, because you want them to be able to do something in a week time. You don't want to give them something that is 6 months long, because you don't believe in it. You want them to plan for a week. And then you check with them if they have all the knowledge in their group. That, they might be wrong, but then at the beginning you don't know. You just say, okay, I think we do. And let's commit. So they commit to doing a set of tasks or a user story, we call it user story, something valuable for the client each week. At the end of the week, I come to the classroom and the Wikipedia representatives come to the classroom and we check if it's according to the acceptance criteria. What feels awkward is actually grading. It's really, you can't find a proper place for grading anymore there. Because you have acceptance criteria. Let's say, for example, I say that the Wikipedia article should have a clear structure so that when I go there as a client, as a user of Wikipedia, I can see the whole thing. I can see what are the topics, of the main article. So nothing is left out. And then the text within the subtitles can be the most important one, and then we will expand it. But let's make it low fidelity, but the whole thing. And then that's, for example, first backlog requirement. And then we have acceptance criteria. One of them says, like, for example, it's even acceptance test. It should be read by a person that does not know anything about the topic and says or can repeat what the main topics are of the subject. It's clear and stuff like that. So what is the grade there? Feels strange. The students help you write the acceptance criteria. you can, as a teacher, you can offer some, or working with the social client, but then students help you as well. Because acceptance criteria means when I, as a student, or the user of my article, does this, then the process behind is the one we define, and the outcome is this. So that's the acceptance criteria, like a clear, rational structure that tells you what you're heading to. One thing I wanted to say was like about clients and education. We are all aware that there is a lot of like hot spots in all educational systems, you know, where we talk about collaboration between higher education, for example, or vocational education and labor market. Why? Because the discrepancy between the two is too big now. The labor market is following fast-paced changing requirements because the times are fast. And the education is not, because it's still 3 years, 4 years. It's not modular, or not as modular as it should be. You can't really get a piece of information, go work, and get back, which you can with an online university, which is really, really fun thing to think. But that's the future, because people are busy. They have, and not only busy, people are also in a need of checking if what they know is valuable. So if it's not valuable, they will give it up, and it makes sense. So when we talk about the collaboration of education clients, yeah, it does sound strange to mention a client there. But if you think better, you prepare them for labor market. So why it's strange? There's nothing strange. We talk about internships, even in the most formal education you can imagine, presential. We talk about we want our students to go out and learn. But then if you mention that client should be participating in defining your curricula or in defining your requirement, then people get scared. That's what happens actually. It's a fear. Because it's your terrain, that you have power there, and if someone else comes in, you feel like something unknown starts to happen. And who knows what? A complexity. You introduce complexity, and then the cause, you don't know what the consequence is, and then you have to test.